Welcome to May, which of course means that today is going to be my April reading wrap-up, which will probably be very short because I read an abysmal 3 books. I tried, guys, I really did. Hello everyone, it is Samantha and I hope you guys are having a fantastic start to May. I am here today joined with you with my handy-dandy narwhal mug, which I love and I'm realizing now kind of matches my jacket. Hey. But today I'm here to share with you guys the 3 books that I read in April. I wanted to read more, didn't really happen, but April is kind of a big month. I ended my last job and I started my new job. So there was a lot going on and it was a good month, so that was good. Just not as good for reading. That's okay. May, I'm hoping, will be better. So since today's video is going to probably be rather short since I only read 3 books, I'm also going to combine it with my May TBR because I do have several books that I want to get to in May and I'm hoping to be able to get through all of them. So stay tuned to see what those are. So before we get into the books that I actually read this month, I always like to show my statistics, so let's start out with those. So as I said, I ended up reading a total of 3 books. One was a classic, one was a fantasy, and one was a science fiction, for a total of 1,289 pages, or about 42 pages a day. Of the books that I read, the authors hailed from Australia, Scotland, and Canada. Overall, it wasn't my best reading month. The star ratings were 2 3-star books and 1 4.5-star book. By book type, it was an even split between hardback, mass market paperback, and trade paperback. So that was kind of the general statistics from my reading month. I didn't read a whole lot, so there wasn't a whole lot in the way of statistics. So now let us get started with what I actually thought of the books themselves. So the first book that I completed in April was Illumini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This was part of the BookTube SFF Awards, and so I had to read it, and I have to say I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I will say the concept is pretty unique because instead of being told in a typical story fashion, chapters, etc., it was told in a really interesting fashion, like memos and emails and audio recordings and things like that. So the format of the book was pretty interesting, not something that you typically see. However, the story fell a little bit flat for me, I have to say. That format didn't really quite work for me. It follows our 2 young protagonists, and one day their home planet, the planet where they're residing on, they ends up becoming attacked by this corporation, and they ended up escaping, and they basically tried to uncover this plot that is going on by this corporation to kind of set things up and frame people and make it so they can kind of get away with what they did, because there's kind of like this corporate battle going on with what they're mining, and it's pretty interesting. There was some pretty good plot twists in there that I didn't see coming at the end, and I mean, I would definitely be intrigued enough to read the next book, the sequel, but overall I wasn't super impressed with it. I found the one main protagonist, Ezra, I found him to be really annoying. Like, after a while, it was really, his character was kind of getting on my nerves, mainly because he kept saying the word chum, and I swear if he was going to say chum or call somebody chum one more time, I was going to fly through the pages and slap him. For some reason, that was really grating on my nerves. Like, she really overused that word with him. Like, it was really getting to me after a while. The female character, Katie, I really liked. She's kind of like a strong-willed character that kind of didn't really let anything stop her. She fought for what she believed in, even though she had really gone through quite a bit. Another thing I didn't much care for about it was that it reminded me a lot of Space Odyssey, and I hate Space Odyssey. And if you watch Space Odyssey, you probably know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the computer. How I hated Space Odyssey so much. So I was getting a lot of like Space Odyssey vibes. So I think that was also kind of dampening my enjoyment of the book, which is stupid because really I should separate the 2 things. They very much felt like they were pulling a lot from Space Odyssey. So it wasn't my favorite book. It was fun. I don't know if I would have ever picked it up on my own if it hadn't been for the BookTube SFF Awards. Yeah, it is what it is. It was an okay book. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't the worst I've ever read, and I might eventually one day pick up the sequel, Gemini. We shall see. So overall, my general rating of this book is as follows. I gave the characters 3 stars, the setting 3.5 stars. The writing I gave 4 stars, and the plot I gave 3.5 stars, for an overall rating of 3 stars. The next book that I finished in April was a much more enjoyable read, and it was a reread for me. That is Anne of Avonlea by Ellen Montgomery. I'm trying to reread the whole Anne series this year because it's been far too long since I've done so. And so Anne of Avonlea picks up where Anne of Green Gables left off. So Anne is, I don't want to say too much because it is the sequel to the book, but Anne is a little bit older and really kind of coming into her own and becoming into this young woman that she has become. And I really like this one. I don't like it as much as Anne of Green Gables, and it's primarily because of the character of Davy that they introduced in this story, which is one of the orphans that Anne and Marilla end up adopting. And Davy is such a little brat. And it's like, everyone's like, oh, it's okay. He's just a silly little boy. And I'm like, no, he's a little brat. I cannot stand Davy. So that kind of lessened my enjoyment of the book as well. And I remember that from when I read it the first time. I had just kind of forgotten about his character, I think, because he annoyed me so much. I just kind of blocked him from my memory. So I don't like this one as much of Anna Green Gables, but I still very much love this series. So overall, my general rating for this story is as follows. Characters, I gave 4 stars. Setting, I gave 5 stars, because who doesn't want to live in Prince Edward Island? I mean, come on. Writing, I gave 5 stars. Plot, I gave 4 stars for an overall rating of 4 stars. And the last book that I read in April was The Dragon's Blade by Michael Miller. I did receive this from the author in exchange for a free and honest review, which is what you guys will be getting. The story follows our main character of Darnur, which I'm not really sure if that's how you're supposed to say it, but that's how I say it. And he is a young dragon, but the story is interesting in that dragons have taken on human bodies. They have foregone the use of their dragon bodies, and they now are in human shape, except for they have like the superhuman strength, they live longer, they have the ability to use magic, things of that nature. So it follows him, and the story opens with his city being invaded by this demon horde. And he is at odds with his father, and him and his father's never really gotten along. His father wants to evacuate the city. He doesn't agree with that. And basically all hell ends up breaking loose soon after the story opens as the demons invade the city, and him and his father and the visiting king and the queen of the fairies are trying to like get everyone out and get out themselves. And in the process of doing this, Darnur ends up becoming mortally wounded, and he ends up getting transported by his wizard mentor slash kind of friend. And the wizard ends up taking drastic measures, and he basically casts a spell that reverts Darnur back to his infancy, so he can kind of grow up and start all over again. The thing is that Darnur will not have any remembrance of his past life whatsoever. And in the middle of the spell, the king ends up getting killed, and the dragon's blade, which is the royal sword, ends up flying to Darnur's hand. So he is the last living heir of the dragons. That's what that means. The sword does not leave the king's hand unless he is dead. So basically the wizard ends up putting him in the hands of the hunters, particularly Cosmo, who is a man that he trusts to be raised and hopefully grow up to be a better man than he once was. So that's the basic gist of the story as Darnur kind of comes into his own, soon learns he's the king and has to kind of figure out how to defeat the demon horde and their leaders. So it was an okay book. I found some parts not to be as enjoyable. It definitely felt like a melding of a lot of different fantasy stories. Like I could definitely see some Tolkien elements as well as some Terry Brooks elements, but he definitely ended up taking it kind of to its own direction, which I thought was good. I actually liked it better than Terry Brooks's books, because if you guys saw like my January wrap up, I hate the Shannara books. I've tried to read 2 of them now, and I've hated both of them and never again. So I definitely liked it better than Terry Brooks's stories. But I don't know, I think it could have used a little bit more editing. I think there were some bits that could have been cut out, some stuff that could have been expanded upon more than we did get in this book. Also, there was a lot of little errors in the stories, such as the wrong word being used, grammatical errors, things like that, which isn't really the biggest deal, but it kind of annoys me just because I catch it and then that's all I can focus on is this wrong use of this word or grammatical errors. Also, I feel like some of the characters could have been expanded upon a little more, such as Darnur's friends. I feel like their character development could have been done a little bit better, but I actually ended up enjoying some of the surrounding characters a little bit more, such as Cosmo the hunter, as well as the wizard, and basically the characters surrounding him I found to be a little bit more intriguing than the main character. Also, the story did get better as the story went along. It definitely started out really slow, and it definitely took a bit to build, but the writing and the story eventually got pretty interesting and a lot better than the first half of the book. So I am interested in continuing on with the series whenever the second book comes out. I don't know if it's out yet, so it wasn't the worst fantasy I've read. It's not the best, but I can definitely see some promise, and I can see how it would get better. So my rating breakdown for this book is as follows. I gave the characters 2.5 stars because I felt like they could have been developed a little bit more, a little bit more fleshed out. I gave the setting 3 stars, I gave the writing 2.5 stars, and I gave the plot 3 stars for an overall rating of 3 stars. Alright, so those were all of the books that I read in the month of April. So I will now share with you guys the books that I'm hoping to get to in May, because there are quite a bit of books that I want to get to in May, and I'm hoping to be able to get to all of them. So let's see if hopefully this coming month will be better than last month. So in addition to those books that I read in April, I did actually start 3 books, but I was not able to complete them. So I'm going to be completing those within the first week of May. The first of those is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I really should have had this finished by now because this was won the Book to Best F Awards, which by the way will be having the final live show at sometime in June. So I'll have a date to announce for you guys soon. So I need to finish this one. I'm halfway through. Again, this is one that I'm not really enjoying. I think that's why I haven't finished it yet, because I keep getting distracted with books that I think I might like better. So I'm hoping I need to get this read. This will happen the first week of May. I need to get this read. The next one that I'm reading is one that a lot of us are reading, and that is The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm over halfway through. I think I have like 30% left. I ended up getting it on my Kindle because, long story short, I wasn't able to get the hard copy, even though I pre-ordered it. Anyway, so I am going to be finishing that one today, and I'm loving it. I think this is actually my favorite book in the series so far, so it's fantastic. So I'm going to be finishing that one. And then the next book that I want to finish in May that I've already started, and I really should have had it read by now, that is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I started this back in February, so I'm really embarrassed that I haven't finished it yet, and the primary reason for that is that I started doing the BookTube SFF Awards. I became a judge, so I had all of those books I had to read, and there were some that were like the second or third book in a series, and I hadn't read the other books first, so I needed to catch up, and so this kind of fell by the wayside, but I really want to finish it because it's a good book and I'm really enjoying it. So this needs to be finished in May, and it will happen. So aside from the books that I've already started that I need to finish, I have a bunch of books that I want to read in May. So it's really ambitious, so we're going to see if I can manage it. Some of them are pretty big, but I'm excited about all of them. And the first of those is one I'm starting tomorrow, and that is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I'm going to be buddy reading this with a bunch of awesome booktubers. So we're going to read about, it's broken up into 3 books, so I think that we're going to be reading about a book a week. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to reading this one. I've heard it's amazing, and I'm excited to read Anne because I haven't read Anne yet. I have read Emily Bronte and I've read Charlotte Bronte, but I haven't read Anne. So definitely excited to start this one tomorrow. The next book I want to start this month is The Nethergrim by Matthew Drobin. I received this from the publisher, and I'm excited to read it because they kind of hailed it as being very Tolkien-esque. I'm a Tolkien fan, so I've heard a lot of good things from other people who have read this book, and they said it's really good, so I'm excited to see what I think of it myself. It's a middle grade book too, so I don't anticipate it taking me very long. And then in addition to that, I also received The Skelleth, which is book 2, and it's coming out this month. So I want to read both of these books this month, and I'm excited to see what I think of them. So there will be reviews coming for these soon as I read them as well, so look out for that. Next one is one that I really can't wait to start, and that is, of course, a continuation of my Anne of Green Gables reread, and that is Anne of the Island. And this is one of my favorite covers from the series. I love Anne so much, so I'm excited to get back into all of her adventures and antics because Anne is a very special character. The next book that I'm going to be picking up is The Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. This is part of the Great Cloaks duology, and I'm very excited to read it. It sounds like it'll be a very fun fantasy series. It follows a company of soldiers that are called the Great Coats, and they're tasked with protecting the king, but one day the king is dying, and before he dies, he passes along instructions to each of the 144 Great Coats. Each one has specific and individual instructions, and once he dies, the kingdom is kind of thrust into a state of war and turmoil, and these Great Coats, primarily following Falcio, Brasti, and Kest, have to kind of unite all of the Great Coats together and kind of figure out what each one's instructions are to kind of save the kingdom. So I've heard Michael from Bit by Radioactive Book and Che from Che's Adventures both really like this book, and I'm excited to read it for myself. And then we're supposed to be buddy reading book 2 this month as well, which I still need to buy. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Last fiction book that I want to read this month, which is a chunker, is The Fell Sword by Miles Cameron, the second book in the Soldier Son series. I read Red Knight in February, I believe, and I loved it. And this is book 2, so I'm excited to get into book 2. I want to see what's going to happen with all of our characters. It's a really, really fantastic series. Very, very well done, and it's very Arthurian-esque. There's a lot of Arthurian elements, which I'm really enjoying, so I'm excited to see what happens to all of our characters in this book as well. Then I have one more book I want to start this month that I'm going to kind of take slow. So this year, one of my goals was to read more nonfiction books, which I've kind of failed at miserably. So I'm hoping to rectify that this month and pick up a nonfiction book, and that's Everyday Life in the Middle Ages. I meant to pick this one up a couple of months ago and it never quite happened, so I want to pick it up this month and kind of read a little bits here and there, take it slow, kind of maybe spread out the whole thing throughout the whole month, which is not very big. And I'm excited because today I actually ordered Everyday Life in Ancient Egypt, so I'm looking forward to that one as soon as it comes as well. I want to start that one this year too. I really love history books. It's one of my favorite types of nonfiction to read, particularly ancient and medieval history. So I'm anticipating and enjoying this one. I just need to actually start it, and I am hoping it will be in May. I need to make a concerted effort to do that. Alright guys, that is it for my April wrap-up and my very ambitious May TBR, but I'm excited about all these books. I'm hoping I can get to them. We will see, guys. We'll see. You guys will have to let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were, as well as what your favorite book was for the month of April. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until my next video, have a great day and have a great May. Bye! So I really hate drinking things when I have lipstick on because it's like, it bothers me that I get lipstick on my mug. So then I have to wipe it off because that's the thing I do. Yep. Yay for Ramble cards. And by the way, if you guys feel like subscribing or thumbs upping, that would be awesome. I would appreciate that. See, I feel awkward asking that. I know I should be okay asking that, but I still feel awkward. Oh well.